No promises I'll stay over here. I always present from that side, but might as well mix it up just a little bit. Okay, so if anyone needs to use the restroom, they are around back and around the corner. We also have some water back there if you guys need it. We'll go ahead and get started here. Promise if you go to the bathroom in the middle of this, I won't make fun of you or tell any jokes about you while you're gone. It's not like the front row at the comedy club, even though I will tell some jokes. And some of them are even funny, despite what my children think. Okay, so here we are. I'm with a couple of young men in my practice, and we're celebrating because this day they both got notes and emails home from school. And if you're in this workshop and you're getting a text, an email, a note, or some type of message from a teacher, it's probably not always been a celebration in the past. For these kids it was, and it wasn't always like it for them. He just got his first full week of green days at school, and he just got a bunch of panther bucks. And I'm not sure what a panther buck is, but he's pretty excited to have them. What I also like about this picture is these kiddos, like when I look at the collars on their shirts, they're nice, clean, and smooth. When both of these young men started with me, their sensory issues were so pervasive that whenever they got stressed, how they managed that was they chew right through every collar they owned. So it looked like bacon that was just like torn up. And that was all their shirts. And it wasn't because mom, didn't want to buy them new clothes. It's just they were going to do that to every single one they wore. Because every single day they had to go to school, they were super stressed out. And that's the way their body was inefficiently processing that stress through proprioceptive input through the mouth. That's a lot. I'll get into that in a second. But they don't do that anymore. Okay, so here's a story that Carrie posted about Keaton. I used to read it word for word, but I'll give you guys the Cliff Notes version. Keaton, her son, 10 years old, he had been diagnosed with being on the spectrum when he was 2 years old. He had current diagnosis of ADHD, sensory processing disorder, anxiety disorder, and DMDD, that's disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, which is like frequent, intense temper outbursts, whether they be in public, at school, or in Keaton's case, it was at home. So he would go to school, he would try really hard, do well, but then when he came home, it was really, really tough, and the wheels would kind of come off on the bus. And I'll find it either way. Sometimes kiddos, when they're stressed out, they'll avoid it at school, or they'll try and exhibit what we termed good behavior, but it's just so stressful for them that when they get home, they finally just unload on their parents instead. So yeah, he had been diagnosed with DMDD at this point, and they'd been to doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, and she told me, Carrie told me, she's like, I've done so much research over the past 10 years. When I walk into that doctor's office, most of the time I feel like I know more than they do about this. And that really resonated with me because, in my opinion, as a parent this day and age, you kind of have to become an expert and an advocate for your kids, and that's what Carrie was. So she found me through Facebook, a Facebook ad. Imagine that. I've been doing these for a while. This is like presentation, I don't know, number 50. I don't know. I've lost track of it. Not because I don't love it, but because I've just done it a couple times. And again, at school, public, he could hold together. At home, it was tough. Very, very tough. It was tough. And so she called me up and she's like, tell me what this is about. I mean, you're a chiropractor. What's this have to do with my child's mood regulation disorder? How will this help him regulate his emotions better? And I go, look, we take a different approach here. Let's talk about this information first. My approach is not to treat or reduce a condition. I'm not looking to cure autism or ADHD. I'm trying to get his body to work with him and not against him. Because right now, his nervous system, his body, they're not on the same page, they're not very efficient, and it's affecting his health, whether it be his mental health, but also his physical health. Because at this point, he is getting migraines, he had extreme digestive issues and food sensitivities, very limited diet, and he had terrible asthma that he'd end up hospitalized multiple times a year. Well, he used to, at least. He doesn't get that way anymore. And that's what she goes on to talk about, how we're looking to evaluate the connection between somebody's brain and body. And when she's writing this review, she's saying her son still has some issues, but he's able to handle and deal with these issues way better. His impulse control has improved. He's not had severe meltdowns in months. His sensory issues have changed. It's more fluid and natural rather than like rigid and awkward. Like he hugs differently than he used to. I remember talking to her early on. I'm like, how's Keaton doing? She's like, well, after his session, he came home and kissed me on the mouth last night. I'm like, that's very sweet of your son. She goes, he's never done that his entire life. In fact, when he was a baby, his sensory system was so stressed out. He was very colicky and fussy that she couldn't even like hold him to soothe him. She just had to like lay him there and let him cry. Incredibly stressful for everybody involved. And then she goes on to talk about how his immune system's working better and his anxiety's better. You know, it's not a cure, but again, like I said, we're trying to help somebody's body to work with them instead of against them. We'll talk more about Keaton later because he's a fun story and I really liked him. All right, I'm Dr. Garrett Smith. I'm a chiropractor. My family, we moved to Liberty in about 1998. I attended a local Catholic high school, St. Pius X. I played football, got a biology degree, cellular biology from Warrensburg, UCM. Did my chiropractic schooling in Overland Park, Cleveland Chiropractic School. Our practice is about 60 to 70% pediatrics. So you come in here, you're gonna see a lot of kids, see a lot of infants, prenatal. You'll also see some adults because we do help stressed out moms, but we are definitely geared towards pediatrics. And I say family because every child has a family. And it's not just that, you know, okay, my kid has this diagnosis or has this issue at school and it's tough. Those issues are not isolated to certain events. They're pervasive. They bleed over into our family life. And as a parent and a family member of I'll tell you why I relate with this. I've seen what I can do to a family. It's not just, you know, that email that's coming home. It's those long, restless nights where we're looking and we're doing our research and we're saying, why aren't we able to get the tools and resources for our kids to help them have a better life, to do better, to help them when they're struggling. I've seen what it does to a family. I've seen what it does to a child when they're going through it, and it changes everything. So what happens when that's better? It changes everything. So we focus on neurodevelopmental disorders. Personally, I have over 800 hours continuing education specific to pediatrics centered around this neurodevelopmental disorder. So I've spent a lot of time, money, resources, portion of my life focusing on this. I'm very, very clued in. This is what I do. You know, I can stand up in front of you guys. And I feel very good when I say this is why God put me on this earth, is to help these families and help these children and change things. I'll tell you exactly why on the next slide, but I feel it's my life's calling. And I do that by taking a different approach. So in this country, we are very pathogenic based. So we're very, in this, I'm not anti-science, anti-medicine, anti-doctor by any means at all. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for science. I wouldn't be on this earth. Very grateful for it. But I'm trying to take a different approach. So pathogenetics, we're looking at what are the behaviors, what are the symptoms, and what is the most accurate, specific diagnosis that we can narrow down that's going to accurately describe the symptoms that we're seeing, so we can place it in that little box there that's formed by an acronym. I feel like that's the effect. I feel like that's the effect of an underlying cause. So I take the opposite approach. I say, what if we take this human being and not this ADHD or this anxiety? What if we take this human being and we help their body be as healthy as possible, work as well as it possibly can? Might it be able to sort some of these issues out by itself? Could some of these diagnoses be an outward expression of an inefficient system that isn't working as well as it could or it should be? And if we give that person the right tools to make them healthier, would things change? I found that they do. Sometimes it's a big change, sometimes it's a little change. But I've never seen somebody get healthier and have more issues. Never seen somebody get healthier and have more issues. So that's what I'm focusing on. Call that wellness. It's a holistic view. You're looking at somebody as a whole person as opposed to a specific diagnosis where I'm glued in on this one thing. That's how we're different. Those other things, they have values, they save lives, but when we're talking about like being healthy, it's not, I find my approach works a little bit differently. Okay, so why me? Why do I choose to work with this population? Why do I kind of stand up here and say, I deserve to be doing this? It's because of this guy right here. This is my brother. His name's Jake. If you come in here, you will see Jake. If you come in here in the morning, because he works nights now. He has a great job and career. Jake and I have the same loving, supportive parents. He's the best man at my wedding. This is the day I got engaged on the Empire State Building. I was just FaceTiming with my wife and my kids, and he was there. He did a best man speech. It was wonderful. Wonderful supporting parents, pretty much the same genes. Our lives have been vastly different. Where I've excelled in school, making friends, relationships, academics, athletics, my career, my health in general. He's had like the exact opposite experience. So when I came out, things were a certain way, and then when he came out later, things were different right off the bat. And ever since then, it's been different for him. So growing up, he was diagnosed with sensory issues, ADHDs, allergies, digestive issues, apraxia, dyslexia, and if it was nowadays, autism spectrum. He'd be on the autism spectrum, would be the diagnosis there. We're falling under those things under the umbrella here. So I watched my parents struggle. I watched my parents do everything they possibly could to put my brother in the right place and get him the right resources. And the beautiful dichotomy of what they did with Jacob is, they go, okay, you know, things aren't going to be as easy for you, but you can do them. We're going to give you the tools, but you're going to have to do it yourself. And that let him learn that he could do it, but he just had to do it his way. We were missing a key part of that, though. We were missing a key part of it. So it was painful too. I mean, my parents did do everything. We drove down to the plaza 5 days a week to pick him up from his special therapists that were down there at 4:30 in the afternoon. You guys ever spend any time at the plaza at 4:30? Yeah, it's fun, but it didn't matter. My parents didn't care if they had to drive 45, 50 minutes each way. They were going to do whatever it took to get Jake in the right place. So Jake's challenges weren't related to his genes. They weren't related to a lack of parenting or parental efforts, because my parents are, I'm a little biased, but I feel like they're some of the best parents in the world, and they would literally do everything. Jake, come on in. We'll have some seats for you here. Can we make sure they get some seats? You know, my mom, she used to stand up here and she'd say, you know, if somebody was they'd be here tonight if they were in your guys' shoes. Absolutely. Come on in. You want to help these folks, John? Thank you. I mean, he's doing well now, but we all watched him struggle. So I understand what it's like as seeing a family member struggle. I grew up there. I was with him every day. I saw what it's like. I know what it does to a family. And I know what it can do, how it can be when things are different. Things are different. So that's why I do this. Okay, so tonight we're going to cover a couple things. And when I look at a child, at a young adult, I look at a couple things. One, is there anything that's interfering with the way their brain is receiving information from the body, from the environment, and regulating itself? It does that through the nervous system. Is there anything that's interfering with the brain's ability to communicate with the body and regulate it? And two, what tools are they using to process their world? Where are their strengths at? Is there some inefficiencies? Are they using the right tools in the right place? Or are they trying to paint the walls with a hammer and the teacher's getting very upset because they're using a hammer? Well, that's all I got. I'll show you what the hammer is here in a second. So when a human being comes into my office, I look at those two things and I say, okay, is there any room for improvement in these areas? And what can we do to help them improve? If I drop like a diagnosis tonight, like autism spectrum or ADHD or anxiety, I'm really looking at things that cause these neurodevelopmental disorders. So I'm looking at a few steps behind the actual diagnosis, the causative factors. Most of these things fall under the umbrella of pervasive developmental type disorders. So there's something going on, neurodevelopmental disorders in the nervous system that isn't allowing the body and brain to develop as well as it could, or it's changing the way it's interacting and regulating with the environment. So in my office, we see a spectrum, if you will, of type of children, young adults with this spectrum of type of issues: OCD, ADHD, ADD, Tourette's, DMDD, autism spectrum, sensory processing, auditory processing disorders, dyslexia, absolutely, depression, anxiety, different things like that. But one of my favorite, ODD, definitely, one of my favorite things up here is gifted. So I find that a lot of my kiddos are like a superhero, meaning they have some type of ability that is incredibly advanced, whether it's the way they connect with other human beings, the way they can sense things, artistic ability, the way they control their body, the way they can connect with other human beings and be able to read people's emotions. But it's kind of like a superhero that hasn't gone to superhero school yet, meaning there's a gap between them being able to use and thrive with their abilities and really it being a challenge for them. And there's also quite often a gap between their strengths and some of their other more abilities. It's like, okay, you can do this amazing thing, but you really struggle with this. How can we get that up, or at least close to that level? So that's what we're looking at. Anybody have a kid pandas? Any questions about that? Okay, cool. We won't spend any time on that. Okay, so currently, right now, if you have a child in this country, well, as of a couple years ago, there's a 1 in 59 chance they can be diagnosed as on the autism spectrum. This is increased, obviously, everybody knows that. In fact, I put a graph up there that's showing it is increasing. So back in like the 70s, 1 in 10,000, now it's a lot more common. Does anybody have any opinions on why this is increasing?
Food.
Food, okay. Food can definitely be a big one. Why would food cause an issue with a developmental disorder like autism?
The way it's grown.
Could be, but what would that do to our body?
Less normal nutrition.
Yeah, sure. It's more processed, more preservatives, more pesticide. So the foods that we're eating that are on the shelf and are available and are cheap aren't like really foods. They're more like food-like substances that have been made by a chemist in a lab wearing a bunch of sterile stuff. So all of those ingredients, if you ever look on the ingredients of the processed packaged foods that maybe our kids are like brand loyal to and crave and yell at us when we don't give them to it, it looks like a cheat sheet for a chemistry test. It's got all types of stuff on there. A lot of it you wouldn't find if you went outside to like forage around, and not all of it's like good for us. Some of it's there to make it shelf stable, so it kills anything that tries to eat it. So that's why we eat it too. We eat it. But yeah, these preservatives and pesticides and food dyes and food colorings, some of them have negative effects to people that are sensitive to it. So it can directly affect the brain via the brain-gut connection. Our stomach digestive system has a nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system. It also produces things called neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, GABA, ACH, things like that. And 90% of those, like let's take serotonin for example, it's a neurotransmitter, which is a chemical that helps our brain communicate, also our body, but our brain, it helps us feel like happy and not sad. So somebody who's been diagnosed with depression, they might give them an SSRI, that's a serotonin, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitase. So it stops our brain from breaking down serotonin. So we keep more serotonin in our brain, in theory. Rarely have I found somebody who has been diagnosed with that and given that medication to affect that neurotransmitter in our brain. They're never asked, how's your digestive system doing in your diet, where all 90% of that serotonin is actually produced. So when I'm going through the histories here, I've yet to meet a kiddo that's been diagnosed on the autism spectrum that doesn't have a current or a history of a digestive issue, whether it be really selective diet or constipation, diarrhea, or when they're young, they're throwing up, things like that. So it's very, very common to see with a kid with a neurodevelopmental disorder that there is a digestive issue. So food, definitely. Does everybody understand how that could affect things? Food affects mood. Food affects mood, always. But it's not the only thing, because I got kiddos that organic, GMO, but they still have issues. So what else may be causing it? Anybody else? That was a good one, though.
I'll be the nemesis, vaccines.
Oh, okay, you're going there, huh? Why might a vaccination cause somebody to have autism?
Well, alters the chemistry, alters and makes you more susceptible to. I mean, I'm a nurse and I don't.
Okay.
I don't agree with.
Okay.
I put up to like 16 vaccines are required of children now.
There's a lot.
Something like that.
Okay. I was vaccinated. I don't have autism. Isn't that fun to hear? Okay, so let's talk about vaccinations here for a second, since somebody brought it up. I'm not anti-vax, pro-vax. I'm not here to condemn anybody based off their views, whether they choose to use a medication or not to do it. I'm on your guys' team. I'll support you either way, and I think that's an informed, independent decision that you can make for your family, and I'll support you either way. You'll never hear me say, oh, don't do that, or you should definitely do that. I'm on your side, just like any type of medication. What does a vaccination do? It's you have the virus, right? And we're trying to get immunity to it, so we have the virus and we put it with a bunch of chemicals that help stimulate our nervous system, that help arouse our nervous system, that help stress our nervous system, so our immune system has a reaction, and ideally it produces immunity if it runs into this virus again. What if somebody's like allergic to a medication? What if somebody's allergic to one of the things they put in there that's designed to stress our nervous system? Could that cause their health to change at that point? Every time I do this presentation, somebody brings it up and talks about it because they saw it. I'd love to say that vaccinations were the only cause of this, but I've met autistic children that have never had a vaccination in their life. But to say that it's impossible for somebody to have a reaction to a medication, really? Is it impossible? There's absolutely no connection at all, especially when a mom is sitting here saying, hey, you know, when I gave this child a shot, we went home and we had a seizure that night. We haven't stopped having them since. I'll tell you what, in our office, what I do, it's a simple rule, and Dr. John's the same way, is when a mother tells us something, we believe them. We don't think they're crazy, we don't ignore them, we don't push them off. We say, okay, I hear you. You know your child probably better than anyone else in this world. I understand where you're coming from. I'll listen to you, I'll support you. So yeah, I listen to people in that regards. That being said, it would be really easy if we could just point to that and say, oh, those are the culprits. But like I said, I know unvaccinated children that have these types of issues. But just like if we gave every child penicillin, might somebody have a reaction to that? Now, we're not giving every child penicillin, but we are giving every child these shots. What if we gave every child a peanut butter sandwich? Some kids would die, and that's peanuts eating. That's peanuts eating. So they're absolutely, for some folks, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. That being said, I'm not up here to talk about it and say you should or shouldn't do, but I am here to support you guys for doing that. That would be a type of a chemical stressor, because I've seen some kiddos have some reactions to antibiotics that were awful, or to foods that were awful. Like I got a little dude that he never had any of this stuff, but if he gets any gluten, he has like crazy seizures. And there's no gluten in the house except for the dog food. And I'll get into the dog food. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, to check in the dog food again, what's going on here? So that's that intense chemical reaction that can cause these types of issues. Does that make sense? Okay, that's my spiel on that. Hope I didn't hurt anyone's feelings. Okay, what else?
Exposure to technology.
Exposure to technology. Oh, that could definitely, we'll talk about that a little bit later and how that affects our nervous system. And that's a big thing nowadays because we have more technology than ever, and the screens and how it locks our body in like a fight or flight type state. And yeah, I've seen kids have like seizures off of that and things like that. But technology is different now, for better or for worse, and it can definitely tie into it. That would be an external type stressor. What else? Anything else?
More studies have been done on it. The
Yes.
advances in technology.
Absolutely, and we're diagnosing it, and we broaden the scope of diagnosing. We're seeing, we're looking at it better, especially in females, and we are increasing the rate of diagnosis. That being said, you know, if that was the case, then 1 in 59 adults would be autistic too, if the number wasn't just going up. So it's not the only reason, but it is a real thing. We're looking at it better. But there is an actual increase in the likelihood, you can tell, because the market demand is increasing. Like there's a wonderful center next door that does really good work with some kiddos on ABA, and they wouldn't have to be all over the city if this number wasn't going up, because when Jake was growing up, they didn't have that type of stuff around here yet. You know, when I was growing up, besides my brother, I can remember one other kiddo in my class where I was like, okay, this child probably has on the autism spectrum. Now, I mean, it's everywhere. Everyone's affected by it. Everybody's family's been affected by it. It's definitely more common. What else? Those are good ones. I find that. I find this from multiple areas. And really it ties down to stress. Stress from 1 of 3 areas. It can be a chemical stressor, it can be an emotional stressor, or it can be a physical stressor. So it's like, okay, what would be a emotional stressor for a child? Well, maybe there was neglect early on in their developmental years. Maybe I was reading this study about, I think it was like the Czech Republic or Yugoslavia, where they had the gulags, where the state raised the kiddos and they had no contact in there, and they described the interesting things they saw, the behaviors within the children, how they didn't develop like other children did, and they basically were all autistic. They were stimming, they were banging their head against the ground, screaming, and they all had digestive issues. It's like, okay, well, obviously that is a huge part of development, is that emotional part, but most of the folks I work with, that's not a big one because they really care about their kids. But what if that mom was like super stressed out during pregnancy? Could that affect a developing nervous system? Yeah, absolutely. Everything that happens during pregnancy, for better or for worse, happens to baby. Another one I see is physical stressors. So like a traumatic birth. What if that child, when they're entering this world, they had a really, really tough time? And every single second they spent on this earth since then, they were under stress. Maybe there was cesarean birth where there was trauma during the cesarean that was undetected. That can definitely affect the nervous system. I'll tie in there. So I find that it's multifactorial that ties into a stress that overrides the nervous system's ability to handle it and then develop properly from that day on. It changes the way our brain develops. So it comes from different areas, and that's what I've seen multifactorial. And that's really what the research shows. So when I was looking through there, they said about 18% came from something genetic. So 1, 2, and 10 kiddos that were on the autism spectrum, maybe it was an inherited gene, de novo gene mutation, chromosomal abnormality. And I've worked with kiddos like de novos and chromosomal abnormalities, and they respond really well to the work we do. But the vast majority, or 82%, comes from multiple factors. And I find it comes from one of those 3 areas. In fact, when we're looking at our kiddos in general, about 43 or half of them have one of 20 chronic health illnesses nowadays. So our kiddos are like sicker than ever. So the really interesting paradox of this is right now we have more technology, more research, more science, more medications, more availability to all of those things, and yet our health is getting worse, particularly in our children. When they were looking at kiddos in America, they were way higher likelihood of being diagnosed with a chronic illness than other countries. And our kiddos are being born with lower life expectancy and lower quality of life expectancy, meaning the years they're on earth, they're going to be sicker, which is crazy as a parent. It's like, what is going on here? Why, with all these resources, are all of a sudden my child is not supposed to live as long as I am with everything we got going on here? It's nuts. So I feel from like a being healthy health standpoint, the public health system needs some improvement in that area. Great for saving lives, but as far as like getting people like actually healthy, there's a gap definitely in our system. And that's really where I try to come in. As a chiropractor, if you ever hear the word like subluxation, because we've been looking at stress for a long time, and this is how I was trained and did my continuing education. It is a neurostructural shift due to stress, and I'll show you those stressors, but those stressors come from 3 areas: chemical stressors, emotional stressors, and physical stressors. If something's going to detract away from our health or override our body's ability to adapt and heal from that stress and cause an adverse health event, it's got to come from one of those 3 areas there. So it's got to fall in there, and when it's too much for our body to handle, particularly when we're little, then it changes our health. And as an adult and as a baby, those look differently for us. And as a baby, their brain and nervous system are still developing. So, and that stress can turn on and turn off different genes. That's what I found was interesting too. So it's like, have you ever met somebody who had a very, very stressful life event, like maybe they got a divorce, maybe a spouse or a loved one died, and all of a sudden they developed a disease, like an autoimmune condition, like fibromyalgia or something, like it's like rheumatoid arthritis. That stress that overrid our body's ability to adapt to it caused an adverse health event. What happens when that person is an infant? Well, that can change the way their brain is developing and interacting with the world through their nervous system. So I'm looking at those 3 areas. And when I think about and evaluate a child and their tools or what they're using to process their environment, and this is what we see, I gotta think about the trajectory of which the brain develops. So when we come out, we're like all reflexes. The baby comes out, they should be able to, when I look at them, they should be able to eat, sleep, poop, they should be happy, loose, and not like tense and rigid. They should be able to move around and things like that. If they're not able to do those things, which are fundamental in a survival as a human being, but also are automatic, that their brain and nervous system does automatically, then there's something going on. There's something going on. If they're spitting up and they're colicky, then there's a problem. There's a problem, absolutely. If they're stuck like this and their head starts getting flat and they just can't move like that and they broke the collarbone coming up, there is a problem. There is a problem, absolutely, absolutely. And what allows a baby or an infant to be able to like eat, and move around is something called a primitive reflex. So these are reflexes that they're born with, like when you put your finger in a baby's hand, they grab it automatically. It allows the brain to make a connection to that part of the body. So what happens about 1.5 is these reflexes, they go away. The body integrates them. It says, I have conscious control over this as I'm starting to develop my gross motor, and I don't need this primitive reflex anymore. I'll find some of my kiddos, they still have some of these. When I checked my brother at 25 years old, he still had a spinal volant reflex, meaning if you run your finger up the left side of his back, it'll twitch like this. Jake, don't do that. Twitch like this. I'll see kiddos that if you guys have ever laid a baby like backwards, they'll do like one of these and they'll cry. So when you're laying them down, you go like sideways there so they don't activate that moral reflex, or they'll swaddle them up so they don't activate it when they wake themselves up. I'll see 6-year-olds that are in kindergarten who are all fired up and their body's always locked in that fight or flight and they're on edge always. They still have the startle reflex. So their nervous system still has this primitive reflex that never integrated, so they still have the startle reflex. So how do you think that child's going to be? They're going to be agitated, jumpy, and irritable. Absolutely. The next thing that comes out is they start to like move, interact with their body by touching things, grabbing things, putting things in their mouth. So really gross motor and then fine motor type skills. So they process the world with their movement and by touching things. Next step is, okay, I'm hearing, I'm seeing, I'm listening, I'm expressing. We're able to communicate, we're able to use our eyes and our ears, we're able to listen, and then eventually we want them to be able to visualize things in the front part of their brain. So be able to look at stuff, determine outcomes, think about consequences, say, is it right or wrong, and go from there. So I'll find a lot of kiddos, their nervous system is really, really stuck in this movement touch thing, meaning they run in the room and they are touching everything around here. They're touching everything around here. They go, I gotta feel what that is. I gotta feel what that is. I know what this wall feels like. It's kind of smooth and it's kind of matte and not like rough. But a child that is processing the world here, to be able to feel that, they're gonna touch it. They may even lick it. So what happens when we sit them in class? We're like, all right, don't move your body. Sit in this seat here, and I want you to do math or writing. I want you to think about abstract symbols with your brain and use a fine motor skill to be able to put that on paper. A high level communication, high level cognitive ability. And they're in this world. They're going to really be stressed out and they're going to struggle, or they're not going to be very good at it, or they're going to try really hard and it's going to be pretty tough for them. So what we do is we evaluate. We evaluate and say, okay, do you have any of these? Where are you at with your gross motor, fine motor? How are your eyes, ears, how's the front part of your brain working? Are you able to visualize things? Can you tell me like what you had for breakfast today? What'd you do this weekend? Where do you keep your spoons in your house? Things like that. When you look at this, what do you see in your mind? And I'll find kiddos that they couldn't tell me how to get to their kitchen in their house. It's like, okay, no wonder they're struggling in school. They're still processing things with their body. So what happens when we get that child to move beyond that stage? Then all of a sudden, the kid that had been labeled as bad and disruptive isn't bad or disruptive anymore. They're just not stressed out. Because when that child is asked to do something that their body doesn't have the right tools for or isn't capable of doing yet, then they're going to exhibit what I call deflective behavior. They're going to try to avoid it. Just like we avoid stressful situations, a kid will do it too. Except, what if school is stressful for them? And we said they have to go there 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. They may run away. They may shut down. They just may have a really hard time doing it. And that's what those behaviors I found are examples of. A kid that doesn't have the right tools yet to be able to deal with the situation they're being put in. Because when they get those tools and when they develop them, all of a sudden they grow out of it and things are better. Things are better. But that's what I look at it. So, and a lot of times I'll see, like, again, the two examples. A kid will just flat out refuse it, or they'll try really hard and shut down. And that works until it doesn't. Typically I'll see that in like my gals. They'll want to exhibit good behavior, but as time goes along and the tasks get more demanding, emotionally it takes a toll. And they'll kind of withdraw and shut down, a lot of depression with that. Okay, cool. So this is just talking about how the brain develops. It's like a flower. It's like a flower. Starts as a seed with those primitive reflexes where they're practicing those movements, and then starts integrating gross motor and fine motor, meaning large body movements, fine motor movements, looking at spatial awareness, coordination, being able to imagine things in their brain, and then going down here is like social interaction and stuff like that. So to be able to do this stuff really well, you probably need to be able to do this. And if you're skipping some of these stages, the chances of being able to do this are going to be decreased because we haven't hit the order. The order is important. You have to do, human brain is meant to develop in a certain order because it builds on the tools it has. So if we're skipping things, we're missing things, that needs to be addressed. And the best time to address it is when the brain's still developing. Okay, so what I find in my practice is when I talk with mothers, and I've talked with several hundred, going up 5,000s now, is if somebody's like, okay, what does a typical history look for a child that has maybe a neurodevelopmental challenges that's showing up and maybe has a diagnosis or not a diagnosis, but we have concerns. They'll tell me, hey, pregnancy was stressful, whether it was physically stressful, emotionally stressful, or I got sick, I had a surgery, we moved, job, partner wasn't supportive. It was just a tough, stressful pregnancy. Baby wasn't in good possession, I was hurt, things like that. Quite often, if that pregnancy is stressful, a lot of times that can make the birth stressful. So birth injury is something that goes vastly undiagnosed, in my opinion, and other medical professionals' opinions too. And some of them, it's just, that's the best, what you gotta do to save lives. But it can be tough. So stressful pregnancy, traumatic birth, and then baby comes out, like I said, can't eat, can't sleep, can't poop, one combination of those, or they just seem tense, rigid. They had torticollis, things like that. And quite often they'll start getting sick because the nervous system isn't working or adapting properly. The biggest ones I see, ear infections, congestion, sinus issues, snoring, things like that. Maybe their milestones are altered. They didn't cross crawl right. That developmental trajectory just was off a little bit. Things happened way too fast or way too late. And then if they're sick, well, antibiotics, right? Ear infections, viral ear infections, you gotta hit them with as many antibiotics as possible, because that's the only way to cure them. And medications, yeah. And then on top of that, our environment, chemicals we're surrounded with, and we didn't talk about cosmetics, but they can definitely affect this, but also our food is more toxic than ever, can definitely affect it. And then societal stress. And if you've been around society the last few years, it's been pretty stressful, especially for our kiddos. Despite what they said early 2020, it is definitely stressful for the kiddos. So what I find is at least one or a combination of these leads to a child that has a high chance of developing something like that. I haven't talked with a parent yet who hasn't told me, hey, something was going on, or we didn't figure out something was going on, that child had one of those diagnoses. Why? Because these are neurodevelopmental disorders, meaning the nervous system's development had to be disrupted at some time that's altered off of its pathway there, whether it be a developmental issue or a physiological issue. So what about chiropractic? Why am I talking about all this stuff in chiropractic? Well, chiropractic itself, in its essence, is not just about sore backs, but it's actually about the nervous system. It's about the nervous system. And the job of the nervous system is to control and regulate, perceive the environment, and coordinate the behaviors of all the cells in the body. I'm going back to my comfortable side here. Well, that's just not Dr. G, the chiropractor, saying that. That's Dr. Bruce Lipton. He's a biologist, pretty cool guy. So here's Alex. She was a pony princess this day. This was Halloween. He was I don't know, some type of conductor. And I was a Care Bear. He's like, hey, Dr. G, why are you in your pajamas today? I'm like, yeah, you think I sleep in this thing? Come on. I've been a Care Bear for several years, I'll be honest. All right, so this is just talking about a progress examination that we did with her. Alex, her folks brought her in because she was having some challenges regulating her emotions. When I checked her out, I found that her nervous system was like locked in a fight or flight, like the whole time. It's like her body had the foot on the gas pedal all the way down. That brake was not working. It's like a Ferrari gas, bicycle brake pedal, all gas, no brakes. So as we go through like a care plan, and all my folks are on plans, we have goals, we have timelines, we have objectives, and we have pit stops along the way to make sure we're hitting that progress in the time we think we should be in the order we're supposed to be. We check in and we say, okay, how are things going? When we talk about like Alex, who had frequent emotional regulation challenges, I'm like, okay, how many outbursts or tantrums is she having a week? How many days a week is she having them? So at this point, she was down to one episode a day, like 3 or 4 days a week. Like, okay, that's pretty good. That's not bad. If it's one time a day for 3 or times a week. I'm like, okay, Heather, let's talk about before we started. How frequently was she having those episodes? And what Heather told me, Heather's a mother, is Alex had never had a good day in her entire life. She's like, we had tried medication, it made it worse. At this point, they were homeschooling because she'd been kicked out of schools. This little girl over here. She's like, she's frustrated 24/7. I just thought that's how she was going to be, like the rest of her life. And I'm not done with her. We'll talk about her some more here in a second. But big improvement. So how did that happen to Alex? How did she go from being frustrated 100% of the day, not sleeping, super anxious, not great coordination, to doing better? This is a handout here. When we understand this stuff, we got to think about how the brain develops. So there's this primitive lizard part of our brain, the blue part, where it says freeze. What a human emotion when they're in that state will experience is dissociation, numbness, depression, shutdown, helplessness, preparation for death, conservation of energy, things like that. So it's like somebody that's completely shut down. It's like when you approach this lizard, like I did in Belize on my honeymoon, and it just stopped, like froze. It wanted me to go away. Human beings, if they're super stressed, they'll go there. You may know somebody that's living their life in this blue zone here. It's not great. It's not a great place to be. It's the very, very middle part of our brain. So the next part of our brain is this, it's the stem of our brain, is the red zone, the fight or flight, the mammalian, the gas pedal, that sympathetic zone. So if I approach like a deer outside the office here, hopefully it doesn't fight me, hopefully it tries to run away. If I override its nervous system's ability to adapt to stress, like on a highway with flashing lights and honking horns, it may freeze and look at me there. When we're in this fight or flight, everybody knows what that is. You're angry, you're seeing red, you're upset, you're afraid, panic, anxious. It's important to be able to get there, like when we're in trouble. It's really tough to like do school and make friends and go to sleep and have your immune system working properly if we're living our life in this fight or flight gas pedal type zone. And a lot of my kiddos, they're kind of locked in there all the time, most of the time. And I can tell because it takes very little stimulus to push them into over the edge. That means they're already there. What we want our kiddos to be most of the time is in this parasympathetic green zone, that brake pedal, the rest and digest. So who wouldn't want their child to be described as joyful, in the present, grounded, compassionate, open-minded, and curious. We should be able to undulate here based on the stress in our situation. And what deactivates the stress response inside our nervous system, and thus our physiology, is the vagus nerve. And it's my favorite nerve in the body. I talked about earlier, that gut-brain connection. Essentially, it helps our body rest, digest, handle stress, and ultimately engage socially. So it's that brake pedal. It helps us be calm and in control, happy, and healthy. I like working with that nerve because it helps my people. It also allows our body to improve the immune system function, improve digestion. It lowers our blood pressure. It changes the way our metabolism works. It also changes the way like our eyes work. So when somebody's up here, the pupils are very dilated because they're using something called peripheral vision a lot, trying to get that in there. And quite often we struggle making eye contact when we're in this red zone. That's how I can tell if somebody's stressed out, through their eyes. Some of our kiddos, if you're working with a child who's on the spectrum, they may have not made meaningful eye contact in their entire life. That's how I know I can connect. Or the only time they're able to do it, because it's very difficult for their nervous system, which isn't working as efficient, is when you get like below them, because it's a lot easier to look down than up, which is why I'm standing. Also, how like our ears work. So when we're in this zone, we're able to hear more moderate conversational tones. When we're in this red zone, we hear like high-pitched screams, like mom's screaming at you, or low-pitched, like dad's yelling at you, like growls and stuff like that. So we have a child who is not listening to us, they can't hear. We take them to the doctor, their hearing's fine. They have selective hearing. They can't hear us until we get right up next to them and we yell their name and they're like, why are you yelling at me? What might they be doing? They might be stuck in this red zone, especially when they're using technology. Technology is wonderful, but it's here to stay. We can have a healthy relationship with it. But to say like video games and movies don't stimulate this red part of our brain would be disingenuous. When my brother was going through his diagnosis criteria, my mom's like, there's no way he has attention deficit. Like, he can watch The Lion King 3 times straight through and focus for hours. It's like, yeah, Mom, can you go to school and do an assignment though? Now, why would a child be able to watch a movie like The Lion King 3 times through? One, the colors, the music, very stimulating. This is a very stimulated type area. So it's like speaking the love language of our sympathetic nervous system, those bright colors, flashing lights from a video game or a movie. Two, he knew what was going to happen next because he's seen it 100 times. So there was not much change. He didn't have to adapt to a change or transition. When we're in here, we want to eliminate all the variables that are possible because we're super stressed out. When you're stressed out, do you want to go do a bunch of new things? No, you want to eliminate those variables, eliminate the change. And when a child's nervous system is stressed out, they'll have trouble changing from one thing to another. So it's comforting for him. And that goes into like food too. Like mac and cheese. You know what every bite of mac and cheese is going to taste like in a chicken nugget. And it's easy to eat. It's easy to eat. Also, when they get older, online bullying is still bullying. I used to think, okay, we got this bullying awareness. It's getting better. Everybody knows about it. And the kids aren't being mean to each other. What I found out is it's different. So when I was getting bullied, I could get off the bus and run home, run away from the big kid. Now you run home, the big kid's online, and he's commenting on your TikTok or your Snapchat or Instagram posts. So that definitely, I feel like the bullying is more pervasive. So there's increased societal stress throughout there. And we know technology and like social media puts us in the red zone because one, we have a visceral reaction to stuff that pops across our Facebook feed. If you read the comment section, you'll see people saying stuff to other people that they would never say to their face. You should see the things people say to me. It's great. I laugh about it. It's fun. Come in here, I'll give you a hug. Yeah, so that's really the fourth T. So we can have a healthy relationship with video games, but they are definitely locking us in and dumping dopamine and stimulating this fight or flight system. You know this because what happens when you take the screens away from the kiddo? Even though it was 5 minutes ago we said we were done. They're ready to fight you like a crackhead over a crack pipe, right? Like it's on. It's on. We set the timer. It's on. So we can have a healthy relationship with this stuff. I'm not saying throw them away, but to sit here and say, oh yeah, they need to be locked into this world that it's good for them. I don't know. Does this make sense? So again, the better your vagus nerve is, the better it can respond to stress and adapt to stress and keep us in this green zone. Okay, so if somebody has like high sympathetic tone, like they're high in that fight or flight, that's where we see the anxiety, PTSD, manic irritability, focus, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep, insomnia, excessive sweating, neurodevelopmental disorders. Over here, if they're like in that blue zone, depression, mood issues, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, hormonal issues, thyroid problems, adrenal, basically the system and brain are not working very well. They're kind of shutting down, working suboptimal below their potential. So back to Alex, we're doing a care plan evaluation. So up here, these are some of the goals that Heather set for us. So decreased anxiety, increased ability to regulate emotion, and better sleep. So if things are the same, you mark right here. If they're worse, you go over this way. If they're better, improved, or resolved, you're over here. So all that at this point was better. Sleeping better, better coordination, immune system was working better, better moods, less throwing fits, less anxiety. And then when she was getting worked up, she was able to have a conversation about what she was feeling and like talk out of that situation, which is pretty great because I know a lot of adults that are unable to do that. So I was very happy with that. And she was sleeping through the night in her own bed, and she wasn't coming in and peeing on mom and dad in the middle of the night anymore. So they're happy with that. So I remember looking through these pictures and I was like, there's a difference between these two. Like she's smiling there. I know this isn't as high quality, but she wasn't really happy. Then when I started looking, I'm like, oh, well, her eyes. She's still in that like fight or flight, even though things are better. When we get down here, yes. And he's smiling because he knew he was next. So what do we look at with a child like Alex? First thing I do is I start right where the brain exits the skull and goes into the spinal cord. So the upper cervical spine, it's like, okay, there's a crooked one with the brain right there. It's kind of putting pressure on the brainstem. It doesn't look that great because they're all cockeyed there. And there's a straight one. Who wants a crooked one and a straight one? Does that really happen? So one of my colleagues took 3D x-rays of before and after one of his sessions with a client. And it's like, okay, who wants this one? This is the brain. There's where the spinal cord goes, and this is the vertebra. This is the first vertebra right there. Who wants the crooked one, and who wants the straight one? This is after one of his sessions, so I thought that was pretty cool. Which nervous system is going to be able to communicate with the body better? The one that's all torqued, or the one that's kind of straight there? Okay, Which medication can I give somebody to move that bone over there? Okay, I understand how this would happen to like Dr. G, the college football player who's in car wrecks. How would this happen to a baby? This is a video of vacuum-assisted cesarean birth. So if you're like not into that kind of stuff or triggered, it is a surgery and it's performed fairly common. Like I think about 40% of our births in America are via cesarean. But I do show it because not everybody's seen one. There we go. So that is, somebody asked me, they're like, they always pull them out by the head. Like, well, if you're looking at it, that's the safest place to grab. They're slippery. They're slippery. We did home births. We were blessed to be able to do home births. And when I caught my son, I'm like, man, he is slippery. I didn't tell you about how slippery they'd be. If you grab by the foot, you run the same risk a breech baby does of the head getting stuck, and that's a big problem. So we grab right under the head, right around the neck there, and that's pretty standard. So it's like, I think it was like 40 to 60 pounds of axial traction with rotation and torque lifting by the head. It takes that amount of pressure to be able to break the seal of the womb and get baby into this world. Potentially to save lives, because it is a life-saving surgery. I'm not anti-cesarean birth when done appropriately. The thing, I didn't have the audio on, but when these two gentlemen were doing the surgery, they were telling a joke. And they go, yes, in the middle of doing a surgery, where a vacuum is a hook into the baby's head with suction and pulling this baby out by its neck and head, they were telling a joke. It said, oh, looks like the ears of a girl. And they pull them out and they go, oh, the scrotum of a boy. And I don't know about you guys, but when my baby's being born, if somebody was doing that to my wife, I don't think it's time for jokes. And definitely I hope that wasn't an emergency. It was probably a casual cesarean they were scheduled one, I hope. But yeah, when your baby was born, did you lift them by their head? Why not? Anybody? Why wouldn't you lift a baby up by their head? They don't. The baby shouldn't have developed muscles in their head because they got to slide out. They got to be able to move it to slide out, right? And if everything's all stiff, it's going to be very tough. So can you see how things might get misaligned or fixated up there if there's no muscles that already highly mobile joint up there? There's no muscles to control that. So okay, here's a baby being born via forceps, which were on medical grade, like essentially growth hormones. They're really meant to like get a good hold on that baby, and maybe. This is how my wife was born. And I was looking at I was talking with my mother-in-law because she got stuck or whatever. I don't know. She was big. All of my wife's sisters were big. Like one of them was like 11 pounds, but she wasn't born via forceps. But I was talking to Courtney and she's like, yeah, Jacqueline was really fussy her first year of life, like really colicky. She's like, I don't know why. And I looked at their Christmas photo because she was born on Thanksgiving. I looked at their Christmas photo and it was taken like a month later and sent out over New Year's. And she still had bruises on her face from the forceps. And I take her x-ray and her spine, I'm like, what happened to you? Like, it's supposed to have like a curve on it. Hers has got like 3. She's like, yeah, whenever I run, my neck is just like crazy. And like, my jaw has always had these issues. I'm like, well, here we go. And no wonder she's fussy. She's got pulled out, for better or for worse. Now, this is not an indictment on the L&D community, labor and delivery. They save lives. But I don't think we're doing everything in our best interest for mother every time when we go in the hospital birth a baby. This is the upper cervical spine. So this is a shot up through the spinal cord, base of the skull, This is that first bone in the neck, the one that we showed was misaligned on that 3D x-ray. Over here is an artery that gives blood to the brain. This is a vein that brings it back, and that's the vagus nerve right there. So what if that baby had this bone shifted, a neurostructural shift inside there, and that vagus nerve is not helping their body move out of that fight or flight? What medicine can we give them to help take that pressure off that nerve to increase the communication? What behavioral therapy can we do to change the position of that bone? This is why we have utility in this. I'm not saying there's not benefits with other therapies. I'm saying if we do this plus those, we play well together. Play well together. This was happening to me. I was not born via cesarean. It caused me all types of issues down the line. Luckily, mine happened later on because I didn't get my issues until I started getting like concussions. Okay. Oh yeah, so what if your baby wasn't born via cesarean? What if they were a natural baby? Could they have some trauma from that birth? Potentially. Why? I find positioning has a big part of it. What position do we give birth in this country in general? You may know? Like supine, like we're on our back, right? Is that always, in every single case, the hospital birth, the best position to give birth in? Not always. Why do we do it so frequently then?
For the comfort of the doctor.
Oh, absolutely. Like my wife, again, we were blessed to be able to do home births. Things went right for us. And she gave birth in a birthing pool, which is like a hot tub. And it was nice. I mean, I got in there and I'm like, okay, if I had to do this, thank God I don't. If I had to do this, I'd choose the hot tub. And then when my midwife was checking, she had like this mirror, our midwife, and she was leaned over the side like this and craned over there watching. And she did that for hours because we had long labor. And I'm like, she's gonna need to come to my office Monday morning because that looks stressful. So there's no way an OB could have a long career at all if they had to do like that all the time, like leaning over the tub. So I mean, for a doctor's positioning, sure. But why would, okay, what's that got to do with a mom? I mean, good for you, doctor, but why? So positioning, why would it be a disadvantageous position? Why might it cause some stress? So this is my birth canal. This is my sacrum, this is my pubic symphysis, so front, back is my baby coming out with the head. So we lay him on the back, sacrum down, maybe legs in the stirrups. All of a sudden we just limited some range of motion. Plus that head's got to go over the sacrum and the coccyx. It's got to go over it. So stretching, pulling, tearing, episiotomy, ripping, pubic symphysis changing, baby getting stuck, bruising, cone head coming out looking like they just got pushed through a little hole. What if that birth canal was already kind of misaligned either way? Really, really tough. We might not even be able to do it at all. Maybe if they were able to get into a different position. What if they had an epidural and they couldn't feel their legs? Wouldn't it be safe to change positions? You can use automatic heart rate when they're on their back. But it's not always the best, and sometimes it can be pretty difficult, and a lot of moms can struggle with that, definitely. And I was looking around, I'm like, okay, why would we even start this position? And wouldn't you know it, a guy ruined the whole thing for everybody. There's King Louis the 14th there. He had 22 kids, and he liked to watch. Kind of creepy, but okay. I mean, I watched my own, but I'm stopping at 2. I'm not going to 22. They're all named like Louis and Louise. And you know he wasn't bending over the birth tub. He's just sitting in a chair and look. So that's really where it all started. So here's a study that's done by a German medical doctor. They looked at 1,000 kids, checked them like within their first month of life. And he found that 80% of them, they had some type of vertebral misalignment, that neurostructural shift in the upper part of the neck, the one we just talked about, right where that vagus nerve is. Right where that vagus nerve is. And he published this study in 1987. It's all in German if you want to read it, but I've got a translated version. It's called Blocked Atlanteal Nerve Syndrome in Babies and Infants. So literally a nerve getting pinched in the upper neck. And he found that 80% of the time there was a kiddo that had some type of interference in the way that upper cervical spine moved. Here's another study done by Dr. Fryman, published in 1966. Looked at 1,250 infants that evaluated in the first 5 days of life. 90% had suffered birth trauma and strain on the neck and cranium, and 10% had severe trauma. Yeah, and I mean, 66, these gals were probably getting locked in the stirrups and not like moving at all. So probably pretty tough. Okay. Oh, here's Dr. Taubman. He talks about the birth process when he published this in, it was called The Latent Spinal Cord and Brainstem Injury in Newborn Babies. It was published in the Developmental Medicine Child Neurology Journal. The birth process, and even under optimal control conditions, is a potentially traumatic and stressful event for a fetus and a baby, and spinal cord and brainstem injuries frequently happen and often escape diagnosis during that process of birth. This is a meta-analysis, so it's looking at all the studies. It looks at every study published from a certain period of time and says, okay, this is actually a good study, this study is not a good study because of these factors, and it says, what can we learn from this? So it looked at 20 million births over 20 years. I knew that was going to happen. So disappointing. And it found that if your baby was born via cesarean, that there was an association that was clinically significant to them being diagnosed with a neurodevelopmental disorder such as autism spectrum disorder or ADHD and other psychiatric outcomes. It was related to, but there wasn't enough clinical data to tie it to like tic disorders, OCD, intellectual disabilities, and eating disorders. So I would love to see this study expanded, and if you were to survey a woman and say, would you classify your birth as traumatic, even if it was vaginal? I imagine the statistics would probably pretty much in line. But clearly there's something going on. They also said the mechanism of action here of how this could happen, this injury in this relationship, was unknown. They didn't ask me on that one though. I know. Vagus nerve, come on. Okay, this talks about how when somebody's neck, the neurostructural shift in the neck gets adjusted, it changes the way the brain's working. So it'll change the way the brain is processing sugars. It lowers their stress levels, increases their quality of life, decrease muscle tone, and decrease salivary amylase. So it changes our digestive and cortisol levels in our mouth. So it causes that fight or flight to relax, and it's looking at the brain itself, in particular the prefrontal cortex. Here's another study that talks about when there's a neurostructural shift in the neck, it changes the way the brain receives information from its environment and then processes it. It's getting disorganized information coming up into our brain. It changes the way we perceive our environment. Here's another study that looks at the front part of our brain and sensor and motor, so how we're sensing and moving our body and integrating that into our decision part of our brain. And it says that after an adjustment in people without neck pain, they could see changes up to 20% in that front part of the brain using an EEG. So when the spine's not moving properly and when it gets corrected, it has a positive impact on our brain, in particular the area that helps us regulate, helps our mood, and helps us do socialization, problem solving, complex skills. Oh, this is an MRI that was pre and post adjustment. So up here, there's a pooling of cerebral spinal fluid. This is what brings and takes nutrients away from our brain. And it's stuck up there. And when they adjusted that C1, that upper part of the brain, it started to move throughout of it and reduce the pooling in that upper front part of the brain. So it can get stagnant there. And it can affect the nervous system. Okay. This talks about how full body movements of the spine help stimulate the back part of the brain, which helps which is crucial for coordinating full body movement, feelings, thoughts, emotions, and healthy function of the organ system. So what if that spine isn't moving properly? Could those areas be compromised or not work as well as they could or should? Absolutely, that's what I found. Not done yet. This talks about when you adjust somebody's neck, it moves them into that green zone, stimulates the vagus nerve, and helps the body relax, pumps the brake pedal. This talks about heart rate variability, which is the test we do in here that relates to 1, to the vagus nerve, 2, to chiropractic can have a positive impact on it, and it allows me to tell if somebody's nervous system is like stuck in a fight or flight, or if it's overwhelmed, exhausted, and somebody's capacity to adapt to stress, their total energy levels. And it does all that through reading pulse and galvanic skin resistance through the hand. And we do this on all of our adults. A lot of our kiddos, they get to the point where they can sit still and put their finger in a little box for 3 minutes. Oh, thank you.
Don't spill that.
Another one to spill. We aren't able to do this one on everybody because getting a child who's off the walls and fidgety they can't really sit and not move their hand for 3 minutes. But when we take a child that's unable to do something like that and they're able to do that, that's a pretty good change right there. This we're able to do on babies. We do it on anybody. It's 2 infrared cameras that roll up the spine. And they take 1,000 pictures a second. It relates to heat coming off the spine. And this heat is in relation to spinal levels, which has direct correlation with autonomic nerve function there. The autonomics are the nerves that work with the organs of the body. So if there's a significant area of the spine where one side is super hot and one side is super cold, that area of the nervous system could be compromised. So let's say we have a baby. This would be an example of a baby. So if this was a baby, I would look at them, and most likely they would either have trouble latching, reflux, or have a lot of tension, rigidity in the neck, and they're probably not pooping very well. The reason I see that is because these nerves work with that, work with the head, neck, and shoulder and the vagus nerve, so they could be colicky, could be refluxy, and these nerves work with like the exit of the digestive system. So we've helped a lot of babies that are, I've been told they're fine, they'll grow out of it, when really you can see there's a tremendous amount of stress in their nervous system. And I love working with babies because if we can get rid of the stress early on, then they don't have to live their life with that stress. That changes the way they develop. Okay. So this is simply a diagram or an example of the neurology of stress. So when stress comes into our body, our fight or flight system engages, it changes the way our body sends energy to our viscera and causes our adrenal glands on top of our kidneys to produce cortisol, adrenaline, and stress hormones. And then it reaches our central nervous system, our brain. And what it does is if it overrides our vagus nerve's ability to adapt to that type of stress, we really start operating off the middle part of this brain. That's that fight or flight, the amygdala, the hippocampus. It's the impulsive type center. And we're not able to engage in the frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, which again is cognitive behavior, personality expression, decision making, moderating social behavior. So those areas separate. When I was learning about PTSD and somebody who's had significant stress in their life, these areas aren't wired together hardly at all. In fact, they're living right there, and then something happens that triggers and puts them right back there. When they're there, they're unable to fire that vagus nerve as well as they could be. Excuse me. So when you intervene and you make a physical change to the physiology of their brain, and all of a sudden those areas connect and wire together, and they're able to fire that. But if it's unresolved, it kind of stays in our body. So once somebody gets stressed, unless there's something done, it's going to hang out there. It's going to hang out there until it's fixed. Okay, here's the EMG. So the 3 types of scans we do: HRV, we can do it on most people that can sit still, and definitely all adults. Thermal scan, everybody. And the EMG, we do it on a lot of our kids. We try to get it on all of them because it tells me where their body's holding neuromuscular tension. And this is Matthew's EMG before and after. So it's I know you guys have seen a lot of scans, but this one has a lot of red on it, and this one's all white. Okay? Before or after. So let's go through his history. Where's his body holding neuromuscular stress? Well, he was a cesarean birth. So a lot in the head, neck, and shoulder. Nonverbal autistic with intense allergies and digestive issues. Also had asthma. These are the nerves that go to the lungs. These are the nerves that go to the digestive system. Big time constipation. So when we got through with them, there's Matthew. He was able to fly planes. Well, he's able to go on the plane. Which was a big step. And his mom said so. She's like, I'm so thankful, Dr. G. If not for you, we wouldn't have been able to go on the plane. I remember 2 years ago, we had to drive to Las Vegas. It was very stressful because of the kids. But now, because Matthew has much better listening ability and focus, I never thought Matthew could do so well on the plane. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And she's like, oh yeah, it's a lot less stressful. So when I met Matthew, his mom came to our workshop with her daughter, and at the time, she was just learning English. She didn't speak it very well. She speaks it very well now. But she was at the end, she's like, what can you do to help a kid with autism? I'm like, oh, well, okay, we just went through the whole thing. I can help his brain and his body talk to each other better. She's like, oh, will he listen better? I'm like, yeah, probably. She's like, good, we want to go to a restaurant. Well, what do you mean? She's like, we've never been to a restaurant since he's been born, 9 years old. And I remember, he'd come in, and very smart, intelligent kid. If he saw anything once, he had it down. He knew it. I'm talking copier, phone, neighbor's Keurig, anything. Any of my equipment, he knew how to do it. You just need to see it once. You can do it forever on there. But getting him to move from one thing to another, we had to me and his dad had to pick him up. Couldn't listen at all. His dad had to run around and chase him all over the place and drag him places. And he'd go from screaming, laughing, crying, and he'd go in this cycle, rolling on the ground. And once we got working with him, he started talking. That was great. That was really cool when he got up and said, "Thanks, Dr. G," after I was working with him one day. I said, "Hey, when did you start talking?" His sister was able to bring him in. You could just tell him, say, "Hey, Matthew, come on over here, buddy. We're going to do this now." Okay, and you just walk over and do it. His dad came in one day and they were playing, he shows me this video, and it's Matthew, he's in the school musical. Now when I say the school musical, I mean the entire third grade class. He was up there singing, doing the hand signals, playing an instrument with everybody. It was loud, unorganized, and chaotic, but it didn't bug him at all. This is the kid that when the phone rang, he was like this, 3 months ago. He's up there the whole time. Stayed up for the whole song. I saw it because I watched the whole thing because Dad wanted me to watch it. It was great. It was great. So he came a long way. Now, does Matthew still have autism? Yeah, absolutely. But things are better. Things are better. His quality of life's better. He's healthier. Not getting as sick. He's able to communicate and he's more connected. He's more connected. His life is easier now. It's easier now. Because our nervous system, the role of chiropractic in neurodevelopment is really related to that nervous system. Because we can't be in growth mode. We can't be in that rest and digest, be calm, healthy, and happy if our body's in protection, fight or flight. And it's really tough for our kiddos to be successful and thriving in life if they're spending all their time in that red zone right there. In the red zone right there. So we got to find a way to get them over there. Oh, here's what Carrie was saying. I think it was, March 16th of, I think it was 2021. So touching back in there. A while back I shared our experience with neurological chiropractic treatments and everything going on. I wanted to reiterate how much this has not only helped Keaton, this is the gal from the original slide up front, but Gannon, his brother, and her as well. If Keaton still had all the asthma issues, he used to have, I would be scared to death of him possibly contracting the coronavirus. Obviously, I don't know what'll happen if he gets it. I hope I don't have to find out. However, I feel confident his immune system is working at the highest level it can. I never realized how it improved so many aspects of his life. Keaton used to catch everything. He was constantly sick. Every time he got asthma, every time he got sick, his asthma would flare up, in which many times it would land us in the ER. I think she said 3 or 4 times a year. Like intense breathing treatments. Since we started chiropractic care over 2 years ago, he's not had one issue with his asthma. He didn't even use an inhaler anymore. He's rarely sick. Although we pay monthly to the chiropractor, we don't have the doctor and ER payments we once did, which I'm pretty sure were more. You guys ever been to the hospital? I'll take care of your whole family for less than 5 minutes in the hospital, I'll tell you that. Yeah, and plus she's, doesn't have to be sick. Doesn't have to use an inhaler. It's pretty cool. So what are we trying to do? We're looking to increase the connection between the brain and the body. That's what chiropractic does. Dr. John and I, we're going to find the disconnect. We're going to move it. We're going to watch the body heal. Because healing takes time. It's a process. It happens in between. It happens outside of here and in between the times we come in there. We're trying to get the nervous system in a state where it's plastic, where it's flexible, where it's able to accept that type of healing and correct itself, heal itself, find its pathway to its potential. We're just the guardrails that help them keep on track. But it does take time. But at the end of the day, a better connected brain will work all the internal processes better. If a nerve can't communicate with the part of the body properly, we just can't expect that part to be as healthy as it could or should be. If you improve that communication, the potential is then realized. Because this is about balance. Most people's nervous system, especially our kiddos, are stuck in this stress, fight or flight state. And if you're a parent with a child with these types of struggle, you're probably in that sympathetic red zone, fight or flight or fatigue state as well. What chiropractic does is it's the natural way of helping the body calm down, relax, sleep, activate immunity and digestion through regulation of the body. Those are things that a human being's body should be able to do. Like, we're not asking, they're not asking me to help their kid dunk. It's like help them go to sleep like everybody needs to sleep kind of deal. Because adaptation is key. If our child can't adapt to stress, life's gonna be a lot more tough. But if we give them greater adaptive potential, then life will be better. Life will be better. And chiropractic itself is a natural way and doesn't require any additional medication. It just reminds the body where it should be, where it could be. And the body takes over because we're designed to be healthy. And in my office, we have a saying, better beats perfect. I'm not promising perfection. I'm not saying your child will never have a tough day when they come in here. They'll never have a bad day ever again. I just want things to be better. I just want things to be better. At the end of the day, when my kids leave my house, I want them to be happy and healthy, calm and in control. If we're able to do that as a parent, then we've won. We did it. If your child's those things. So yeah, they may not love math class all the time, But if they're able to do those 4 things, then things are just better. Matthew still has some challenges for me. Things are better. Keaton still has some challenges. A lot of my kiddos, we're still working through some stuff. But gosh, life is a lot better. Life is a lot better. It's better for them, and every day forward it's going to be better because of that. Because in my opinion, there's no bad kids. There's just a child who has been placed in a situation where their body just doesn't have the right tools to be able to adapt it, and they're not in the right state of physiology to be able to get there. Because a lot of these issues are physiological in nature, meaning we've had our discussion with these children about their behaviors. They know what I'm doing isn't right, but for some reason they continue to do it. It's impulsive. I don't know why I'm doing this, Mom. I feel like my brain is making me do this. So it's not psychological in nature, although psychology is a huge part of it, but it's physiology, the state of our body. Have you ever been so stressed out you can't sleep? We know we should sleep. We think, oh, I should just relax. And the thought of not being able to sleep when we're supposed to be able to sleep stresses us out more, and we stay up all night. What if your child is there every day? How do we get them out of that? Maybe we can help. Okay, so some commonly asked questions. What does my first visit look like? So I threw out a whole bunch of things out there. Like I went over the list of history. That's like the shotgun approach to what it looks like in my practice. What I need to do is get like sniper specific. Some of this stuff is probably applicable. Some of this probably has nothing to do with your situation. I got to figure out what it is going on with your family, your child, and where they're at, and if we can help. So I like to do that first visit over the phone, because I'm not interested in sitting there with a kiddo that's struggling and talk about all the things they're struggling with. If I truly believe that their body is not allowing them to do these things properly, then I'm not going to be like, why are you misbehaving in school? What's wrong with you? I want to have that discussion with you guys so when they come in, they can have a positive experience. This is a healing environment, and they actually want to be here. They actually want to be here because they have fun and they feel better. So that's what the first visit, we do it over the phone, we chat, we have me fill out the paperwork, it's a detailed history, and I dive into it and see if, okay, hey, this is going to be a good fit, we're going to have a good relationship here. The actual first visit when they come in, we do a few things. One, we get them comfortable with the environment. 2, we're going to scan their nervous system, like Harley will do it, or maybe Brittany if it's in the morning, and then we're going to see if there's any stress, that neurostructural shift. And I'm also going to do a brain-based examination, meaning, remember when we chatted about like the primitive reflexes and the gross motor and the fine motor? I want to look at all those skills and developmental steps and see if there's anything that's just not there yet, that maybe needs a little bit of attention. So maybe they're having trouble reading and writing, but I found that they still have that startle reflex and they're edgy, and also they really can't move their body very well when I ask them to like stand on one leg or touch their foot. The ability to develop that fine motor skills, if we haven't hit the gross motor milestones, is diminished, and it's in the way because it's a roadblock. Just like that retained reflex of my brother was a roadblock in his development. That means that part of his brain at that time didn't go to where the other parts did. So if we can clear that roadblock, we just gave the body another avenue and another tool to be able to interact with the world. So we'll do that brain-based exam. It's pretty straightforward. The tests are simple. I want to see, okay, can they do it and how do they do it? You know, are they having to compromise or acclimate their things? Are they able to only write with like one eye right there? If I watch their eyes, are they both moving together when I watch them? And then we'll show them the table or get them checked out. Just get them comfortable with the office. So that visit typically takes about 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes. And then we have them moving around and doing things. And then at the next visit, we go over the results with the parents, me and the parents, and then we get started with sessions that day. So the actual individual sessions themselves in our office don't take very long. That's the nice thing about what we do. We're like the shortest doctor appointment you're going to be to on the daily visit, because it does take consistency and frequency. Like any healthy habit, takes consistency and frequency if you want to change the way things are working. It takes repetition, it takes time, but that's how the nervous system learns, just like any skill, like I said, healthy habit. So the visits themselves, they don't take very long on a daily basis. They take as long as they need to be. I'll meet the kids where they're at. You know, if we need to talk about anything, we will, but we save the progress discussions generally for those progress examinations. So how long it takes, like on a daily visit? Not very long, like 5 minutes, maybe. How long does the overall process take? Well, it depends. We have a few types of programs in our office. We have our standard program, which is geared towards kiddos with health issues, stressed out adults, babies, and then we also have our focus program, Elite Focus program. It's geared toward children with neurodevelopmental disorders, diagnoses, learning challenges, extreme anxiety, kiddos that have been through a little bit more. The Elite Focus program does take longer just because of the depth of the issues and the neurological rewiring. So if we're looking at like specifics, it ranges from 9 months to 15 months, depending on age, intensity, how they do on the test, what's going on. We see everybody twice a week in the beginning. But halfway through, we gear down to once a week. I found that works a little bit better than 3 times a week. I split tested in the past, and I go, okay, this is what works better, and I just take more time to work with the body longer. On the standard program, it's 2 times a week all the way through. On the Elite Focus, we do it 2 times a week, and then about halfway through, we gear down to once a week. We reevaluate on that Elite Focus every 3 months. So we check in on what your goals are, where they're at, where they're succeeding. What do we need to focus on that's not getting there, and what can we do to help those areas meet where our other things, to make sure we're on track. Because we got to hit these goals. It's important. And if I'm not going to get there, and if we're not getting there, we got to figure out what we need to do it. So we definitely check the progress there. Okay, so how much does it cost? So for a child that's like coming off the street, or a parent, I guess I should say, that's coming off the street that has a child that would qualify for the Elite Focus, which is generally the children that we've talked about tonight, or young adults. That evaluation typically costs $300. We do have a special going on. It's $47 if you sign up tonight. And I would do it because we're getting closer to capacity. I do have some space, but I'll be honest, we're very busy. We worked with like 115 people today. I help a lot of people, but I can't help. I got a limit. Dr. John's great. He helps me. He does most of the work, honestly. I just talk and tell my jokes. But we have a limit, but we do have some space. So we can get you in here. What that'll do is it'll get you the evaluation, we'll get you the phone consult, all the tests, everything we do, and I'll come up with a plan. Anything moving forward, if you're like, okay, Dr. G, how much does the program cost? Well, it's $325 a month for the Elite Focus program. What that includes is all of our sessions, evaluations, and our at-home brain-based exercise program. If somebody has like a primitive reflex that we need to work out, they're able to do. And that's included in our program. So $325 a month, 9 to 15 months, depends on what's going on. Okay, what if I have 2 people? Well, we have a family discount. So we have a hard cap of where we go for the second family member, if it's another child in the Elite Focus, or if it's like, it's me and my son, me and my daughter, we both need this. You did end up saving about, 30% off of the full price with that. So there's a cap. But if you're like, my whole family needs this, we have a hard cap at $650 a month. So you can do 3 to, we have families of like 8 who are like, yeah, we finally get to do something together. And I mean, I don't have to pick my favorites anymore. So if you got a whole family, we do have a hard cap. So instead of being, $325 times 2 is $650, whole family for that cost a month. We're able to do these types of discounts because what we do, we don't bill insurance, essentially. We can give you the codes, you can submit it on your own, and you may have good luck with that, but I'm not in contract with the insurance companies or else I couldn't give discounts to people that need it. So you can use an HSA, a flex spending. Again, we'll give you the codes and you can submit it, but I definitely feel more confident in my ability to help a child than I do in insurance companies to properly reimburse you for your efforts. But that allows us to keep our prices low and give those discounts. Okay, cool. Did I miss anything else? Excellent. All right, so if you guys have any questions, I'm gonna be up here. Also, Dr. John, he, again, like I said, he does all the real work in here. I want you guys to feel free to ask him, but I'll be up here. If you're ready to get signed up, the gals up front are right there. It's important you do get signed up because I wake up every day and I have this alarm on my phone that says rescue mission. The reason it says rescue mission is because time is important. So this is a study from Harvard that shows our brain's ability to change over time, the effort it takes to do that are inversely related, meaning when they're babies, there's a huge potential for change. It doesn't take nearly as much. We start getting older and getting, like when I started working with my brother who's 25 years old, the threshold is different than if I had helped him when he was 5 or 8 or 3 when he had his regression. Yes, we can help adults too, but it takes a lot because time is important. It's important you get signed up tonight because, even though Jake's doing great now, he works at the Ford Points at nights. He has friends for the first time in his life. He's healthy, takes 0 medication. He's happier than he's ever been his entire life and is doing just point out awesome, he still has challenges. And my mom will tell you, she's like, if we had been able to do this for Jake, what you're doing with these kiddos, things would have been different. But I don't have that time machine for him, but here's your opportunity for your family. So go ahead and get signed up. I'm up here if you have questions. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.